Welcome in episode 36 of Ramie and Drew. We are live on a Saturday morning. I am Ramie Makloff. That is Drew Flaggy. And why are we live on a Saturday morning? Why would we do that? Because our schedules have just been completely out of sync the last few days, and we haven't been able to get together with each other or with you, the faithful Ramie and Drew listener or viewer at YouTube and Apple and Spotify. So we said, you know what? Let's give the people what they want on a Saturday morning, Drew. We were just talking about X-Men. We'd get up on a Saturday morning and watch X-Men. We're kind of like the X-Men, and folks can get up with us on a Saturday morning.
Yeah, get a bowl of what was your cereal when you watched the Saturday morning cartoons?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean the classics, Lucky Charms. I was a big Cocoa Puffs guy. Loved me some Cocoa Puffs. And the chocolate milk left in the bowl afterwards. Yeah,
yep.
that was my jam.
Yep. Cocoa Puffs and Frosted Flakes for my two.
And what we were talking about before we're going to get into the Bucks. We got to get into Shohei because it's about sports and gambling, and that is Drew's forte.
No, daily fantasy.
But we were talking about X-Men 97, just to give people a little context of the conversation we were having about getting up on Saturday mornings and doing things we love. And it's back, and it's on Disney Plus. And I think they did a pretty good job with it. Drew is done. He's done with Marvel. He's out.
I'm done.
Can you be brought back?
Look, they're gonna have I'm gonna see Deadpool 3. It's gonna take a series of good movies for me to come back. I don't care about any of these characters. I think they write all the heroes like they're villains now. They try to justify this weird there's a moral gray area. And it's Sam Wilson legitimately wanted Bucky to die through the entire show.
And now you're going to go in the weeds. Now you're going to go in the weeds.
I know. But they played spooky music behind John Walker. And they're like, see, he's a bad guy. He's Captain America, but he killed people. But if you go back to the first Captain America, he literally busts down a door and is shooting Nazis.
Yeah, but they're Nazis.
The people were blowing up government buildings with just government workers in it.
Hey, I'm not here to defend anyone or to villainize anyone. I'll just say that one person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter. That's all I'm saying, Drew. All right, that's all I'm saying.
Is this a Palestinian thing that we're doing?
I was gonna. I was trying to be a little bit more to sneak it in. You know what I mean? You just had to call it out. You just had to scream it from the mountaintop. I was just trying to sneak it in there. You know what I mean?
That's exactly what they did. They snuck it in. That was the problem.
It's called nuance, Drew. It's called nuance is what that is.
Yeah. Lighters are new.
I'll agree with you that, and we are going to talk Bucks and we are going to talk Shohei in just a second. Look, I got my Bucks. I got my Bucks mug here. I'm not as down on the whole. I'll just say nerdiverse because we're talking about Marvel and Star Wars here. I'm not as down on it as you are, but I'll admit it hasn't been as good. There are 3 franchises I'm convinced they cannot fuck up, and that's you just mentioned Deadpool, and I can't wait for Daredevil and Punisher, the series to come, because Drew, to me, Punisher was the best thing in the whole Marvel universe. And I know that's high praise. I know that might sound crazy to a lot of people. It was my favorite thing in the whole Marvel universe, at least that first generation of the Marvel universe. I loved that. It didn't feel like a comic book series. It felt like a war veteran coming home with some PTSD who was dealing with it in kind of a fucked up way and going out and hunting down criminals.
Are you talking about the Netflix series?
Yeah.
I liked the first season. The second season was a little bit weird. No, I think Daredevil seasons 1, 2, and 3 were all great. I really liked everything they did with Daredevil. The Defenders I thought was terrible. And I actually really liked season 1 of Jessica Jones.
Never saw it.
Oh, season 1, dude! You should go and watch.
Oh no, I did. I'm sorry, yeah. I did. Yeah.
David Tennant, fantastic as the Purple Man. He's awesome.
Yes. Yeah, that was really good. Luke Cage was bad. That wasn't very good.
Luke good for the first 8 episodes, and then they killed Cottonmouth, and then it just got weird again. It's
Iron
just
Fist
And then the
Iron Fist
second
was one of the worst things
Black
I've ever seen in my life. I'm
yeah.
sorry, what'd you say?
I said no, the second season, then they did Black Mariah again. Like they did the same storyline that they did for the first or the last like 5 or 6 episodes. They did the same storyline for another 16 episodes. And you're like, I thought we were done with this.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Iron Fist was a complete waste of time and
Yeah.
garbage and trash.
Except for the episodes that Luke Cage showed up, where it's like I actually liked those two together, but it was only for like 2 episodes. So
yeah. All right, let's move on. We are here to talk sports. That's what we do here on the Ramie and Drew show. But as I say, and whatever else might come to mind, since we last convened, Drew, the Bucks lost one to the Celtics with no Giannis, and then won one just a couple nights ago with no Chris Middleton. We'll start with the Celtics game. It was not competitive for much of that night, but and you know what, Drew? We've given a lot of shit to the NBA media world and even like fans and the way that like narratives get carried away, especially negative ones, and especially seemingly when it comes to the Bucks. I got to say, after that game against the Celtics on Wednesday, the narrative in a lot of places, I even heard it from a few Celtics fans, including our friend Nick Cattles, my former co-host, who you can catch on the Nick Cattles show and follow on Twitter at Nick C Radio. He's a big Boston Celtics guy, sort of saying moral victory for the Bucks to come out and mount that comeback from, they were what, down 20 plus points at one point in that game.
24 or something at some point. It was like 20. There was 20. I know it was in the 20s.
And almost pull it out is without your best player and without maybe the best player in the NBA is pretty impressive. And honestly, Drew, I walked away from that feeling the same way.
Well, yeah, we were at the bar, and like, I mean, it got real exciting in there, you know, right towards the end when Bobby Portis hit that big 3 at the top.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It was great, but like also like when you said like everyone talking about, oh, it was a moral victory for the Bucks. The thing is, the only people who seem to not think it was a moral victory were the actual players. Like if you listen to like Middleton post game and Damian Lillard, they were like, it's still a loss, and it's like, yeah, but like, come on, guys. Like this was the one game, like I thought that it was going to be overreaction city with the fans and stuff and like all the dark corners of the internet I lurk in, and everybody was actually shockingly positive about that game.
Yeah.
I mean, I was okay with it, but then it's like the players were like the only ones not happy with the outcome, and I'm like, well, that's understandable, but I was like, man, you guys are being more hard on yourselves than you need to be. Like, have you
that's going to happen?
Have you ever like made something? Like I had like wood shop in in high school, and I made like a cabinet, and there's like a little bit of a defect on it because like I scratched it with something, and I was really unhappy about it. You know, and my grandma, you know, she's like, grandmas are always gonna praise like everything you do, and it looks perfect. And I'm like, no, like I screwed it up right here. Like that's exactly what like the Bucks players were kind of being like after that game, where they were they were just more like, oh, you know what? Yeah, I did this wrong. And we're like, no, we're proud of you, man. Like, we're really proud of what you guys did. And they're like, no, I suck. And it's just like, come on, guys. Don't
remember a few weeks ago when we went to Comedy on State up in Madison, and I had, I think by most people's estimation who were watching, I had a pretty good set. But I told you, as soon as I walked off stage, so we only get 4 minutes, and I had like a 5-minute bit I was doing. So you kind of got to edit on the fly, and I took out the wrong line, and like, so that was, even though I got laughs throughout, the first thing I said to you when I walked off stage, I was like, I screwed up. I took out the wrong line. Like it was a good night. It was a good set, but that was the thing that stuck in my mind, was the one thing that I kind of screwed up. You know what I mean?
Right. And that's exactly the thing that like that stood out to me particularly with the Bucks, was that Dame looks like Damian Lillard. Like he looks like the guy that he's been like that for about a week and a half now. He's been looking great. Bob Portis has been stepping up huge. You know,
dude, Chris Middleton, and I know he probably doesn't have the legs or the lungs yet to call him in full game shape, but the stroke is there, the shot is there, man. He looks real good since coming back from the injury.
Well, the legs are there, though, it looks like, because he played 32 minutes and Doc said he was going to play him only 30. But, like, they were such a run that, like, how do you pull him out? So, but like he did pull Chris Middleton out after Middleton hit like a big shot. But Middleton's going to be getting back in there. I'm really excited for tomorrow's game now that everyone's healthy and that they can go back and play. They can go and play against Oklahoma City because that's going to be a tough game. But I still think OKC is beatable. Like I don't think
Agreed.
that the area of a 1 seed is like everyone else kind of thinks they are. I think they're too small. Like Chet can get pushed around. I don't think he's that strong yet. A couple years from now, he might be like a Brooke Lopez type. But right
And
now,
they just don't have the pedigree. Like I think especially in the NBA, Drew, even with arguably the people will maybe take issue with this because of where a lot of people are watching or listening to us from. I watched arguably the greatest team ever assembled in the NBA with the Bulls in the 90s, and Michael Jordan and those teams had to go and get their asses kicked for like 3-4 years in the playoffs to sort of build up those battle scars and figure out what playoff basketball is all about. Oklahoma City just doesn't have the pedigree yet, the playoff pedigree, I think, to go and run through the West or to consider like a huge favorite to come out of the West as the 1 seed.
No, they're like what Sacramento was last year.
Yeah. Yep. I was just going to say that. Exactly.
They remind me so much of the Sacramento team right now.
The Bucks had to do it. The Bucks had to suffer. Have some really good regular seasons and then go into the playoffs and get their asses beat and learn what playoff basketball is all about. That's the reality of the NBA, man. It's literally largely because of the way that referees call it, but also the way that coaches use their benches and rotations. It becomes a different game in the playoffs, and you have to figure it out.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the Bucks are going to be just fine. Like last night I was at the Comedy Cabin in Janesville, and the owner of the club asked me he's like, put bias aside, who do you think is going to win the championship this year? And I was like, until they tell the Bucks to go home, there's no games left for you guys. I'm not going to rule our team out because you still have to be better than Damian Lillard and Giannis in a 7-game series.
Yeah.
I don't know who can do it outside of the Celtics.
And that's the point I keep coming back to is just that this is a star powered league. And when you have two guys like Giannis and Drew, you have a really good chance of coming out of just about any 7-game series. The following night, Thursday night, they pull one out against Brooklyn, 115-108, and Chris Middleton did not play in that one. Not surprising that he's not playing in back-to-backs, coming off the sprained ankle. And they were handling the Nets for about a half of that game, and then they just came storming back. And there might be some of the opposite sentiment in that game compared to the Celtics game of should it have been that close, against this Brooklyn team with the big lead that you have. But that's an NBA team over there. You have no Chris Middleton. Giannis wasn't himself. He went 9 of 19 from the field, 21 points in 35 minutes. I had no problem with that performance, and I really like the way that the Nets were able to make it close, and the Bucks did what good teams do down the stretch of close games and closed it out. You had big shots by Dame, you had big shots by Beasley. I was really happy with the outcome of that game without one of your best players in Chris Middleton.
Yeah, that was fine. That was just one of those games too where it just seemed like they decided, okay, well, we're going to turn the switch back on now. So it's like this is a team that can turn the switch on and off. And they did let the Nets get back in a little bit more than was probably necessary, but they closed it out. Dame had some big steals. Also, Damian Lillard was fired up at the end of that game. Like if you saw him flexing and everything, and that was awesome to see, because then my whole thing was like, hey, ESPN, I think he likes being here. It's, let that shit go where they're just like, oh, he's miserable, he hates it, that he didn't want to go to Milwaukee. I think he's having fun. Okay, it looks like he's having fun.
I don't think the problem for Dame was ever Milwaukee. I think the problem for Dame, and having some experience in doing this, is being away from home, being away from your family. Like no matter where he ended up, and I know he wanted to be in Miami, and maybe if you're in Miami and surrounded by sunshine and sand and beaches and gorgeous women and whatever else, it's a little easier to cope with being away from your family and so far away from home. But I think no matter where Dame ended up, there was going to be an adjustment period because he's not like this huge nightlife guy from what I've seen, from what I've perceived of him. He's a dude who, he's said it himself. He likes to go home after the game and he misses his kids, man. He misses his whole family out there on the West Coast. There was going to be an adjustment for Dame. I don't think it was a problem with Milwaukee. I think it was being homesick for lack of a better term. And he probably still is a little bit, but you adjust, you get used to it, you settle in, and it helps when you're winning more basketball games and when that big orange ball is going through little orange hoop more often. Like it helps you cope a little bit better.
Yeah. No, he was good. Also, another thing too that I want to kind of bring up about just the team. Did you notice no Brook Lopez to close out these last two games?
I did notice that.
That was odd. I'm wondering what's going on there. Like I get that he kind of was getting beat by like Porzingis, but I didn't understand. Like Claxton isn't that much of like a threat, I think, but they still didn't play him at the end of the game. So I don't know what's going on with that, especially with him being like the defensive stopper. So
yeah, we'll have to see if that becomes a trend. I personally don't necessarily like it, but that depends on the matchup. You know what I mean? He does struggle with some of the quicker, more mobile, more agile big men that can dribble around him and get to the hoop or do a little step back and pop one over him. He's one of the best rim protectors in the league, but there is a certain type of player that gives him some trouble. And if Doc feels like the matchup dictates that somebody out there would be better than Brook Lopez, I'm going to trust Doc on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just wondering to see tomorrow, like, what do we do at the end of a game? Because I mean, offensively against the Celtics, they made a big comeback without Brook out there, I was like, okay, I was like, Bobby was hitting shots, but against the Nets, Bobby wasn't really a factor offensively. And then like Brook wasn't out there. I was like, that's interesting to me.
Yeah.
And it just made me raise my eyebrows, being like, what's going on here with this?
It doesn't make sense on paper because like a lot of times the coach will make offensive or defensive substitutions down the stretch. He serves a purpose on both ends of the floor. You know what I mean? With the way he stretches the floor or can play around the hoop on offense with the rim protecting on defense. But like I said, I think it's a matchup thing for Doc and a certain type of guy that gives him problems. Got a comment here on the YouTube page, and I was going to mention this from Daniel. He says Dame's defense is superb. 2 big steals at the end of that Brooklyn Nets game, and I don't know if you heard it. I caught it on Sparky's post game show over there on 1250 AM The Fan. My guy Steve Sparky Pfeiffer is back. His comments on Valley Sports afterwards, where he was kind of boasting about his defense and saying, hey, this is something I can do. This is something he said, I always defended the best player on the other team till I got to the league. And then I had to carry so much of the offensive burden. And, that takes a toll on you. It drains energy. So I had to sort of pull back what I was doing on defense because of how much was asked of me on the offensive side in Portland. And Sparky made the same point. He said, it felt like Dame was kind of making a point and maybe talking to Doc there in that post-game interview of, hey, I can defend a little bit. You don't have to, because the night before he had gotten taken out of the game for Pat Bev. He was maybe saying, you don't need to take me out of the game for defensive situations all the time. I can do this a little bit if I don't have to carry so much of the load on offense.
Well, you can look at it the other way. It's like, Dame, you're going to be in there for offense also a lot. So I wouldn't be offended if you bring in Pat Beverly to, try to get a stop, if you're telling me, we need to get a stop here and it's for one possession, I still kind of want to roll a Pat Bev on that one just for the stop. Yeah. I'm not saying we're going to try to steal the ball, go in transition, like any of that. Like, just get a stop and like, get possession again and call a timeout and then bring Dame back in. Like, I'm totally cool with that, because you wouldn't sit there and go, well, we need a bucket, let's put Pat Bev in there.
No.
So
no,
that's yeah, I mean, Damian Lillard's defense has been really good under Doc, and like it's the same thing as with Malik Beasley. Like I keep talking about him because I still see people saying that they think that Beasley's defense is bad, and I'm like, when they got to get a stop, he really clamps down.
He's average, maybe slightly above average. I don't think he's not the guy that we saw at the beginning of the season, Drew, who we didn't think. I remember saying on this podcast, like, I don't think this is an Adrian Griffin thing. I just think Malik Beasley can't play defense. I don't think anybody's getting that out of him. But he's gotten better. He's gotten better since Adrian Griffin was fired.
I keep bringing him up because I gave him an F on defense at the midseason, and how it's like, I'm like, it's actually pretty damn good.
Yeah. No, so, he has been pretty damn good. And I'm not saying, again, matchups, but Dame can play a little defense, and he'll pick the pocket or jump in the passing lane here or there and cause a turnover. And if you're not dealing with, I don't know, name a great shooter in this league, there are plenty of them. If you're dealing with a great shooter or a guy who's great off the dribble, maybe have Pat Bev out there. He's a defensive specialist. But if it's not necessarily like a mismatch there at the point guard situation, then yeah, maybe you leave Dame out there on defense. He showed you can do a little something, and has shown flashes of that throughout the season.
Yeah, no, he has more steals this year than Drew Holiday.
Yeah, you've pointed that out a number of times to Celtics fans. And he makes a great point, and I think a lot of people don't think about this when we're like, why doesn't this guy play defense? Like, about the sort of the battery life of a player over the course of a game. You know what I mean? And if you are a Dame Lillard and you have to carry the load that he has to carry on offense, how much that drains you or how much defense that means you can play on the other side of the court. I don't think a lot of fans think that. I think these guys are just, peak performance, physical athletes and can go out there and run 100% from one end of the court to the other end for 48 minutes. And that's not possible or realistic.
No, they're not machines.
Right.
That's why I always hate that argument. Well, you're making $50 million a year. I'm like, it's for a certain reason. It's
right. Yeah.
Dame's making that money because he's gonna bomb you from the logo. Like that's
right, exactly. Yeah, he's not making that because he's gonna swat your shot out of the air every time you come down on the other side of the court.
It's like whatever he gives us on the defensive end, if it's adequate, I'm
bonus. Yeah, that's a bonus. All right, I know you got to go. You got to get to the gym, huh? You giving them buckets today?
Well, okay, so my girlfriend isn't awake. Her and she has not responded, so that means she is out cold. So I'm thinking the gym ain't happening today for her. I was there for 6 hours yesterday. I'm also okay with not going.
Okay, good.
Because she wanted to play basketball, she wanted to play basketball with me. I told her that I would play like one-on-one with her, we'll play 21, and I told her that clamp me, she can get free throws out of it. If you stop me and I have to pick up my dribble, she can have a free throw. So she can play to 21 with 1s, 2s, and 3s.
You can give her buckets?
Men's ball.
Yeah, you got to give her buckets, dude. You can't take it easy. Can't take it easy on the girlfriend.
This is gonna be controversial. I'm putting that bitch in the bucket, dude. I told her
she's not going to hear this, is she, or see this? Oh,
right now. Comment if you're awake right now, because you didn't respond to my text. I'm putting her in the bucket.
I mean, I'm going to clip this. I'm going to clip this and send it to her to make sure that she sees it.
No, I'll play in the car. I'll play.
You throw bows? What? Because she's got a height advantage on you, does she not? Am I wrong? She's a little taller than you. Am I wrong?
Probably like an inch and a half. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Okay. I'm just
saying.
Advantage. That is true. Yeah, you got the girth.
Yeah, I'm scrappy, dude. I'm a post player, dude.
Okay. We do have one more thing we have to address here on the Ramie and Drew show, and that's the Shohei Ohtani story, who might be in a little bit of hot water, Drew. And you know I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm the last thing from a conspiracy theorist. I'm the one who on this show is always telling you got to be a little more careful with what we're just throwing out there. Like when you insinuated that a certain owner of a certain baseball club in the city of Milwaukee was on a certain island. All right. And I'm just going to leave it at that because I don't want to repeat what you said. All right.
Look, have that much money
you can't just
on the players. It's going somewhere.
Okay, moving on. But there is something weird about this Shohei Ohtani story. For those who don't know the details, I'll give you the cliff notes. Journalists were digging around a story about this illegal sports book in California, and they came across wire transfers from Shohei Ohtani's bank account to this bookmaker in the total amount of about $4.5 million. That obviously raised some eyebrows. And then they were like, oh, his interpreter got in some gambling debt, and Shohei, being a good friend, he covered it for him. And then like less than 24 hours later, they changed it to the interpreter stole this money from Shohei Ohtani to pay these gambling debts. And when a story changes that quickly, Drew, without prompting of any kind, it does raise an eyebrow and make you go, what's actually going on here, and how much of this debt was his interpreters and how much of it was maybe Shohei's himself?
Well, first of all, I don't like that you put Shohei O'Flaggy because that makes it sound like he's Irish, and that was last week. Like, we're done with that. We don't have.
You want me to take out? Is it better if I wasn't sure about the apostrophe. I could take out the apostrophe and see if that changes your how you feel about it at all. Let me see here. Let me save that and put it back up. Is that better?
That looks a little bit better. I guess just because it's like you're trying to go Japanese,
Okay.
I would E at the end of my name to an I, but that's just nitpicking.
Fair. That's fair. Okay. Because you're the gambler. That's the joke for those of you who can see the banner across the bottom of the screen.
This betting thing is really funny to me that like this happened. But I mean, like, we also know that that's happened like with like comedians and stuff where guys have gotten their money completely, like their bank accounts wiped out by like their agents or, like a brother or something like that. It's just like, or a brother acting as like representation and being like, yeah, I'm going to manage your money. And then all of a sudden, like $2 million of Dane Cook's money is just gone. I think that's who got his shit stolen. That would be.
You're right. Yeah.
There were like a couple comedians though that had like millions, and then like it was just all gone because the people that they surrounded themselves with took it. So it's not that far-fetched of a thing to say that maybe his interpreter got in bad. Like,
yeah, but
like lost some bets.
The thing is, Drew, you're talking about people who would have access to your finances. You know what I mean? And people who would have authorization to even spend your money on your behalf. I saw a lot of people pointing out, including people who work in the banking world, saying it ain't easy to get $4.5 million of wire transfers sent, even if it is you. You know what I mean? Like there is it's not like I go on Zelle or PayPal or Venmo and send Drew $20. There is multiple checks and verifications before you're able to send that kind of money, that amount of money over a wire transfer. So that also kind of doesn't really add up, that this guy would even be able to do that or have access to that kind of money that belongs to Shohei Ohtani.
The way I'm looking at it kind of is because Ohtani, he's not married or anything, right? Like,
he just got married. She's a hooper, by the way. Yeah.
Okay. So the thing is with like with that, like my grandpa was deaf. So like all of his medical stuff my grandma handled on the phone because he couldn't talk on the phone. It just didn't register with his hearing aid.
Sure.
Because he had like an older kind of hearing aid. So like my grandma was like the one that authorized literally everything for him. So if Ohtani speaks like practically no English or whatever, and maybe his interpreter had that kind of access. I'm just playing devil's advocate
here. Yeah,
sure. Weird. But I'm like, I see scenarios where his interpreter could probably have had access or been in talks with how to do all this stuff. Like I mean, he's definitely got to have like financial advisors and stuff like that. But it's a wild thing that he lost all that money.
Dude, that's $4.5 million doesn't just move from one place to another that easily. You know what I mean? It just doesn't.
Well, I don't have that kind of money, so I don't know, dude.
Oh, I do, Drew, and I can speak from experience.
Well,
and go ahead.
I was say, well, I mean, when I hit on Underdog, they put that in PayPal.
Did you hear about that dude? He turned a $2 parlay into I think it was $150,000.
Yeah.
And I don't remember which, it was FanDuel or DraftKings. I don't remember which one. They siphoned it for his child support payments. He didn't get a penny of it. They sent him a notice saying your money was taken for child support.
How could you owe that much in child support?
I don't know, man. I don't have any kids. So I do not know. But yeah, back to the Shohei thing. At first, and man, I do hate Rob Manfred, and I am gonna take one more shot at Rob Manfred before we get out of here. But this seems to be the way that every league handles scandal now, where they ignore it until it becomes so big a story that they can't ignore it anymore and then launch an investigation. When the story first broke, Major League Baseball was like, nah, we're not going to look into this. It checks out. And then people were talking about it for 2 days. And I think it was last night, Major League Baseball announced that they are going to launch an investigation into this thing. And I'm curious to see what they dig up. And I saw Jeff Passan the other day on I think it was on the McAfee show saying this thing is going to court and people are going to have to testify as far as this illegal California bookmaker. And so this all is going to be on record as far as how this went down. We're going to find out stuff about what went down with Shohei Ohtani and just what was at the bottom of all this. I don't think they're going to be able to keep this covered up for too much longer if they're covering up anything.
What's funny to me is that he's going to have his interpreter in court and he's going to be sitting there trying to tell the truth. And his interpreter's going to be like, I'm not saying that. Like that's what's funny. Is like, is this having a look on his face like, wait, you're telling me to tell them that I did this? He's like, yes. I mean, this. I don't want to kick a man while he's down here, but it couldn't have happened to a better team, dude. The fucking oh man.
Yeah, but I still love Shohei. I couldn't root against him, man. I just love watching that guy. And honestly, I was excited he was in the National League and that I'd get to see him more. Watching a lot of Brewers and a lot of Cubs baseball, I'd get to see him a little bit more, even though he's still on the West Coast. I hate the Dodgers as much as the next guy and how they just buy rosters, just buy all-star teams. You know what I mean? But he's one dude I couldn't root against. And if they dig up dirt on this and he's suspended or whatever, it's a Pete Rose situation, that would bum me out, man. That would legitimately bum me out.
A little bit. See, here's the thing, because remember, as much as I'm a fan of like a couple other teams, in the NBA, my other team for the MLB is the Angels, so I'm kind of like, yeah, fuck them, dude. It's just like, because
that's fair.
I mean, but like the thing that made me more mad when he like left, that cracked me up, was when like they had him at like the Rams game and they were like, welcome to LA, Shohei, and I'm like, he was there, he was already there. It's like, you guys never invited him before.
He was already there.
I get Anaheim doesn't really count.
I've made that drive. No, I've made that drive, Drew. We went all the way from Northern California to Southern California, from Sacramento to San Diego, and you pass through LA on the way, and it's like 20 minutes. It's like from here to Brookfield. You know what I mean? To go from LA to Anaheim, it's like from here to Brookfield. It's like going to the Improv. So,
like hey, welcome to Milwaukee, Drew, and I'm like, I've been in West Dallas. I'm like 10 feet from the goddamn stadium. It's fine.
Oh, you just mentioned West Allis, and it reminded me. Last night I was watching Stephen Ho at the Improv out there in Brookfield, and
Yeah.
he was doing the crowd work and asking where are we and blah blah blah, and some dude was hollering out from the crowd stuff, and Stephen was like, "Oh, are you from Milwaukee?" And he was like, "Yep," and he was like, "Oh." He's like, that's great. And the guy was like, born and raised in West Allis. And the whole crowd, Drew, shouted him down, telling him he is not from Milwaukee. That they apparently Milwaukee does not claim West Allis. They just shouted this dude down
What?
and booed him for being from West Allis.
Brookfield people can chill out a little bit, they're not much better. What? Because you got fucking cops? Is that why you're better? Because you got cops? You don't even have the good cops. The good cops is like on 76th Street.
It was hilarious. They booed this man for being from West Allis.
Why? Why? Because we have fun in West Allis? Because we got bars? Because you can fit the entire population of West Allis into all the bars and not be over fire code? Yeah, that counts Buffalo Wild Wings also. But like, so what?
It was great. It was pretty funny. But real quick, back to this.
What kind of audience does he draw that they're so hoity?
And so he's a former medical worker, so he draws a lot of people from the medical doctors, nurses, technicians, things like that. So he draws. Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
He was hilarious, by the way. I wasn't familiar with his work beforehand. He was hilarious. And his opener, Jack Jr. You ever heard of Jack Jr.? Part Middle Eastern, part Mexican dude. Also, he was hilarious. Go check out if you can find him on the social medias. I haven't yet. But real quick, this Shohei thing. So the story broke. I don't remember when it broke, but it broke early in the morning, earlier this week, and because
right before we went to the Bucks game.
Yeah, that's right. And
you and Gary were talking about it, and I was like, oh yeah, I kind of heard something about it, but I wasn't sure what it all was.
Yeah, so it was Wednesday morning. It broke Wednesday morning, and because Rob Manfred is a fucking idiot and is having his opening day in Tokyo, where they're playing the face of his league, where the Patrick Mahomes, the LeBron James of his league, is playing overnight to start your season. Good job, Rob Manfred. Fucking brilliant. But that game happened at like 3 a.m. or whatever. And then the story broke shortly after the game was over, and people went back and looked, and Shohei, and by the way, this is when the story was still, or no, that's when the story was he stole $4.5 million from me. Shohei and his interpreter are yucking it up and joking around in the 9th inning of that game. And then a couple hours later, they're telling us he stole $4.5 million from him. And Shohei knew this as the game was going on. Drew, you're one of my best friends in the world. If I found out you stole $4.5 million from me, we're not having a good time in the dugout as the game is winding up. You know what I mean? We're not chuckling it up.
If I found out that you accidentally took a sip of my beer at the bar, we're not talking.
Like it doesn't add up, dude. There's a lot of things about this that just aren't adding up. I hope it all just looks bad and it turns out Shohei had nothing to do with this, because like I said, love watching the dude play baseball. He's amazing. It's phenomenal, literally phenomenal. It's a once in a generation and maybe not even that type of thing. But man, there's a lot about this that makes you go, this doesn't seem right.
What I honestly think happened is I think that he lost that money gambling, and it was one of those kind of things where it's like, I'm going to say it was you to protect me, and I'm going to be paying you under the table.
Yeah.
Like, I'm basically going to pay all your, like, whatever thing and whatever fines you have. Because Ohtani's getting $1 billion, like, over, like, the next, like, 500 years or something like that. It's like, whatever. It's like, they've got money. These two dudes are set. It doesn't matter. Like, there's no amount of money that's going to put ththese guys in jail. Like,
yeah, that's the theory from a lot of people, is that Shohei's interpreter is taking the fall for him. You know what I mean? In a number of ways, because A, it's the gambling, which would put Shohei in hot water. B, it's the dealings with an illegal bookmaker, which is that's a legal issue. And then C, throw on top of that to pad the story a little bit more, they're throwing $4.5 million of theft charges on top of it. You know what I mean? If this dude is taking the fall to that degree for Shohei Ohtani, that's a great friend, Drew. I wouldn't do that for you.
That guy, I mean, he's gonna go to like a white collar prison. Like he's gonna have to. Like they're gonna
Sure.
maybe like a club for criminals. Like, that's all right. Like, you know, it could be worse. Maybe they'll let him watch.
That's all I had.
I'm just trying to work it out in my head. Like, it's just such a bizarre story, but also it's like
weird.
At this point too, I'm like, just let the fucking players gamble. You know, they're all doing it. Like, they're setting so much shit. Like with like the in-season tournament now with basketball, it's in Las Vegas. Like, you don't think these dudes are gonna start doing this shit? Like, you know, they're all doing fantasy. They all know what their lines are at. I mean, Tyrese Halliburton was crying like a little bitch the other day about like, I'm just a prop bet for a lot of people. Yes, you fucking are. Mm-hmm. You absolutely are. Because you think that there's a lot of Tyrese Halliburton fans out there, you skipping numbnuts, fucking acting like you won the goddamn World Series in December. It's like you won a championship in a sport that you don't even play in. That's how excited he was.
But you know what, Drew? I do think sorry to interrupt your rant on Tyrese Halliburton, but I know you had to get that out. But I do think that a guy as high profile as a Shohei Ohtani and a story this big, if it cracks open and it turns out Shohei Ohtani has a gambling problem, it might force people on a large scale to go, have we let this gambling thing get a little bit out of control? You know what I mean? Even though you and I both know it's going on, and maybe we don't know to the extent that it's going on, but it might force change in some way. That does happen when you have high profile stories like that and high profile people like that, where we go, maybe we need to rein this thing in and pull it back a little bit, which I know would not make you happy and other people who watch and listen to this show, but it might force some kind of action, or at least some sort of start the thought of maybe we're letting this thing get a little bit out of control.
Well, but that's the argument though, of like, it's the one bad apple spoiling the bunch thing, where it's like, I'm sorry that he lost a lot of money, but it's like, if you lost a bet, you lost a bet. Like that's mm-hmm. the risk you run. And that's why it's like when I joke around about doing like underdog and everything, like I'm only doing like $5 bet. Like there was like the other night when we were watching the Bucks and the Celtics, I had like a bunch of $2 parlays down. Like I was like trying to win $20 with $2. Like that's what I was doing. Like that was just fun. Like, but like also it's like, I understand the people that absolutely do ruin their lives, like gambling and stuff. Mm-hmm. But it's like, you know, I started doing it because a lot of our friends were doing it and stuff. And I'm like, all right, like it's fun. And I looked at the lines. Like I had bets on last night on the games. And yeah, I was cursing Jimmy Butler's name because he couldn't score 21 points against the New Orleans Pelicans. But like, I literally lost $3 on that bet. Like it was totally fine.
You have a problem, Drew. You have a problem. If you win that $20, you keep it, or does it go to child support?
No, actually, you know, when you talk about the jersey money and stuff, that's where it goes. It goes to, it's my fun money.
Oh yeah, you told me that.
Yeah,
it's your jersey fund. All right, Drew, that's all I had for episode.
I make money doing comedy, and then I reinvest it into my portfolio, which is underdog, and then I diversify, which means I bet on the Orlando Magic and the Bucks. So it's a diverse portfolio.
And then you put it in an investment of jerseys and
right. And Ben Meyer,
marble figurines. Yeah.
And Ben Meyer told me that I'm basically the Wolf of Water Street. So
all right. That's Drew Flaggy. He's the Wolf of Water Street. I'm Ramie Makhlouf. This is Ramie and Drew, episode 36. Drew, I'm going on vacation. And I said yesterday I was going on vacation, and somebody on Twitter was like, vacation from what? This, first of all. And also I do work. I have a part-time job. All right. I have a job. But I'm going to Port Aransas, Texas on the Gulf of Mexico for a few days. I am gonna I'll bring some podcasting equipment with me and see if I can find a room in the Airbnb for us to do this on Monday and Tuesday.
Did you say that you were going to Portland, Texas?
Port Aransas, Texas.
Yeah, Portland,
on the
Texas.
Gulf of Mexico. Yes, that's where I'm going. Portland, Texas. So by the way, hottest of Jacobs Jacob asks, Drew, do you still not have a real mic? No, he doesn't, Jacob.
I lost a lot of bets. Jimmy Butler doesn't cover.
Dude, those little wireless mics are like $4 and they sound fine. They sound or $40. I'm sorry. They sound fine. They sound great. But that is for another day and another show. This has been Ramie and Drew, episode 36. I'm going to try and come to you live with episode 37 from Port Aransas, Texas on Monday. I get back Wednesday, Drew. So either way, we'll be back on Wednesday at the latest. But I'm going to try and line up some podcasts from the Gulf of Mexico. Tomorrow? I leave tonight.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Not doing a post game after the game tomorrow.
No, okay. No, I'm not working on Sunday from the Gulf of Mexico. All right, Drew. I will talk to you again soon, though. This has been episode 36 of Ramie and Drew. We'll talk to you next time.